Okay, so this demo is for the horizontal bandsaw, and we're going to be checking out on this machine the first day in the lab. So we're always going to start with our drawing, and on our drawing for the bolt gauge, it actually shows in the far right corner here, it has some notes, and it shows the material size. And it shows 3 1/8 of an inch times 2 inches times ½ inch. And you can see on the finish sizes, our drawings are always going to have a 3-dimensional finish size. And this shows it's going to be 0.375 or 3/8 thick as the finish thickness. The finish width is going to be 2 inches, and the finish height is going to be 2.937. So you can tell by the material size, it's going to be 3 1/8, so it's going to be cut a little bit over this 2.937 dimension. I'm going to have some material out here leaned on the back side of the saw, and this measures actually exactly 2 inches. I can measure this with my scale, and you would want to do this before you cut it. And it's ½ inch, and then of course it comes in lengths as large as 12 feet. I think we have them cut to 6 feet. That would be the longest. So on the horizontal saw, the way we would operate this is we can actually pull this slide, this clamp back and forth. I would set the material in there, and then I would bring this up, and it's gravity fed. So if I bring this up now, I can see you can tell that now it's feeding, and I always want to leave the saw in the down position after it's finished the cut, so we don't have any material there we can check. And you can also see this on the very far right. It has a dial for the feed rate, and then it has an on-off switch for the feed rate, and the on-off switch is on. So I'm going to switch this off, and then once I bring this up, and I'm going to use this handle, not my wheel here, but this handle, which actually tightens the blade. So I think I might eventually install a different handle here so I don't have to use this blade tension handle. And as long as I don't turn it, it's okay. I'm going to bring this up slightly with the feed stopped. The feed dial I'm not going to change. We're going to leave that between 2 and 3. I think it goes all the way to 10, and that doesn't specify any specific speed. It's just the rate that we allow gravity to use the gravity to feed it. So it's not it doesn't specify a certain speed. It's just relative to faster or slower. So now that I have my blade up and stopped a little bit, I'm going to have clearance here where I can push my material through the bottom of the blade where the clamp is. I'm going to use my 6-inch scale, and I'm going to measure from this side of the blade to the edge of my material. And I'm going to go 3 1/8. Because it's a fractional size, it's has a pretty wide open tolerance. So I'm going to clamp that, and I know it moves a little bit. Put a little weight on this wheel, make sure it's clamped. I can actually, you're going to want to come over here and grab the material and see if you can pull it out, and it feels like it's clamped tight. I'm going to measure a second time after it's clamped with the edge of my scale against the edge of the blade on this side. And this shows I'm at 3-inch 200. It's a little more material to cut, but I'm just going to cut it at that point. Now, maybe even we would want to do this either before we load the material, or I can do this now. In this case, I'm going to make sure the reset button is turned all the way right. This is the emergency stop, and you can press this if there's any issues. Press this in, it will stop the blade, but I'm pretty sure this won't stop the feed, so that might be an issue. We'll actually look at that right now. I'm not going to change my feed rate. It's set to 2, just past 2. I'm going to turn the blade on with the green button. Oh, I had the reset set, so I'm going to turn the emergency stop to the right. Now I can receive power. I'm going to make sure the cooler's running on both sides. And actually, one thing I should have done was also double check this blade guide. It's kind of far back, but you know, it's only 1.5 inches, and I'm cutting aluminum, so I'm not too worried about it. I'm going to just make sure that's tight. And start this. When you turn on the spindle, the coolant should flow, and it should be, I have this adjusted. Pretty good, so it doesn't make too much of a mess. So it is flowing here, it looks pretty good. So this all looks good, but I'm going to bring this up. And I'm going to see, if I bring this up all the way, and I'm going to test this with material in there. And this is my first time operating this saw. I'm going to turn off the feed. I'll turn the dial real slow. So I'm going to turn off the feed, and it's feeding, and now if I hit the emergency stop, the gravity still feeds, so this is kind of a safety issue. I'm not going to let the blade touch. I'll actually just turn off the feed here. But I'm going to have to put a notice on the machine that if you do turn off the spindle blade, you can still end up feeding. So it's really important that if you do that, there's an emergency situation, you turn this off. We also want to turn off the feed rate, so it doesn't feed a blade that is not rotating, doesn't feed into the material. So this looks pretty good. Set this at 2.5. And I'll stand over on this side just in case there's any issue. Kind of watch it feed. It sounds good. It looks good. And I don't have to hit the emergency stop to turn off the spindle. There's an auto stop as soon as it finishes the cut. And that turns off power to the coolant system as well. So that looks pretty good. You should leave this like this. If you're the last student to cut material and you can let me know, and then that way I'll remove the material from the clamp and put it back into material storage. As a student, I'll take this material, I can again double check that I have cut the correct size, and I would immediately with the rag wipe this down, get a file, and deburr this so I can handle this without worrying about getting a little cut on my finger.